Good morning, gardeners. Well, I have a situation on Facebook that created quite a little stir there. Nothing major, mind you, but it was kind of neat. It's a topic that we've all talked about, and it all started with this tomato here. And you can imagine what the topic is when I said I picked the very first tomato of the year. And the topic, of course, is should you pick your tomatoes when they first start to blush, or should you allow them to ripen on the vine? Now, the common way of thinking is there's a reason they sell tomatoes as ripened on the vine. It's a great selling term. It indicates freshness, indicates honesty, that tomatoes are not picked early and ripened in a factory and then something like that. But let me just explain why it doesn't matter to pick a tomato on the vine. I think for those of you that are dead set that vine ripened tomatoes are the only way to go, I don't think I can convince you any way else. That being said, let me at least share with you why I picked the way I picked. All right. So number one, this tomato on the vine is still pulling water. It is pulling water, and as long as you're watering moderately and everything's stable and all that, the tomato itself will be fine. But if you end up with an excessive rain, or if I don't get back to shut the water off properly, there's a variety of reasons. We put this tomato that's done growing, because it is done growing, susceptible towards cracking at that stage, because it's not putting on new skin. It's done. It's mature. It may not be fully ripened all the way through yet, but it is done growing. So we do risk cracking by leaving a fruit on the vine. Second, far as the plant itself, again, like I said, there's energy that's got to be spent to keep this guy alive. That's what the plant thinks. So its goal, of course, is to create a bunch of little tomato seeds out of this. So it doesn't really care for you to pick it. It doesn't even matter if that thing, it just wants it to mature so it could drop its seeds on the ground and proliferate the species, right? That's the idea of any plant out there. So by getting this plant off of the vine, we save energy to go back into the tomato to apply that energy towards other fruit to make them a nice one. Tomato actually weighs 1.3 pounds, 1.03 pounds. So you apply that energy there, and also towards reproduction, telling it to go ahead and continue putting out more baby tomatoes. The second thing is that from the tomato itself, this tomato is we can possibly prevent things like this occurring. Now, we didn't get to this quick enough, but we had a little worm decide it wanted to start to bore a hole. Now, it didn't go all the way through, but it made an unsightly spot, and this one's going to be for Dilly and I. This is a 3/4 pound tomato, but it was actually turning as well, as you can see. So we risk allowing mice, insects, worms from attacking our tomatoes by leaving them on the tomato plant. If we can get them out and get them into a cool 55-degree environment. Generally, we try to, run 55 to 60 degrees. A nice, cool environment. Our tomatoes will ripen. They'll ripen very nice. All right, so now then, the other side about the tomato debate is taste and flavor. Now, I know the hydroponic guys are very proud of their hydroponic tomatoes, but maybe there's a producer out there that has perfected the flavor of a hydroponic tomato. But I will say, and there was a great video by a Canadian woman, and her husband had hydroponics, and they had also ones grown in the ground. and she did a taste comparison. I think she thought it would be the same, but to all of her employees, she says, guess which one's which? And they all said the one that was grown in the soil was actually better tasting. Now, whether you agree to that or don't agree to that, that was their finding. That's my belief as well. So hydroponics do taste different. It is what it is, but they are the nutrients are different the way they're pulling them up, and so they have to provide every nutrient. I don't know if they're missing a nutrient or not, but that's the difference in flavor, in my opinion. When we say, oh, it's a commercially raised tomato, and they don't taste as good as my vine ripened tomatoes. Well, certainly if you're vine ripening them in your backyard, I think a hydroponic tomato, I think you're 100% correct. Because the real issue is a hydroponic tomato versus a soil planted potato or tomato. So that's one thing. I see some folks are doing different things, like they're putting them in a pot of some kind of a growing medium and dripping in. So maybe they figured out that we can still grow a good hydroponic tomato if there's a 2-gallon pot of soil there. Maybe that will fix the problem. I don't know. I don't grow that way. I grow in the soil. So my plants grown in the greenhouse or in my high tunnel are exactly the same as if I grew them right outside of that high tunnel. The only difference is they are protected with some shade, just like I'm protected from shade in my trees right here. So last but not least, I would like to say that we've already talked about productivity. We're trying to give our plants more energy to go towards other things. We're also trying to protect the plant from insects, worms, mice. The last thing I can say about getting the tomatoes in my environment is here in Kansas anyway, or in pretty much anywhere, if you're going to go through the summer of these 90-degree temps and above, maybe, I don't know where the line is drawn. Is it 85 degrees and above? I don't know. But I do know this, is that tomatoes that are allowed to ripen on the vine or outside in 90 degrees or hotter heat will have a tendency to be an orange tomato and not a red tomato. Now, it may not mean nothing to you. They're going to taste the same. But an orange tomato, if I'm sitting there competing against one of my fellow market vendors at the farmer's market, is that if I have red tomatoes and they have orange tomatoes, generally speaking, the red tomatoes are more eye appealing to the consumer. Tomatoes are a red fruit. We see them red in the stores and all that. There's no extra dye or anything added to them, but these are, in my case, mine are allowed to mature in a 55 to 60 degree environment, which allows them to turn red versus ripen orange. That's the only things I can tell you the differences between picking them. And for Delia and I, this is also by having these already size sorted, put them in the right boxes so we know which is which. That's one less job we have to do. Today's Friday. Today's a market day for us for the Saturday. Today's a big harvest day for Saturday's farmer's market. So this is one less job that I got to go out there and find ripe tomatoes hanging up on the vine. They're already in the room. That's where I can focus my attention, is how many boxes of red tomatoes do I have to take to farmers markets. So I don't know if this helps you or strengthens your case towards vine ripened tomatoes, whichever it is that you want. But I want to at least explain, why do we pick these tomatoes while they're still mostly green? Is because the plant is done with that tomato. It will help the quality of my fruit. In my opinion, no taste difference between this tomato and one I allowed to ripen on the vine, except for I risk more by leaving it on the vine with some different things, insects and cracking and things like that. You could even see where this guy had even gone through a little battle scars early on, and it's as it grew up, and from either my stringing them up or from little worms doing a little, or insects doing a little gnawing on it. Get it off the plant, put it in a nice box in your air-conditioned room on the counter. It'll ripen just fine, believe me. That's why I do it. If you have your own opinions and like to share it here in a comment, be glad to read it. Until we meet again, come grow with us and hit that like and subscribe.